Welcome back to today's episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show we have Jeff McMahon, and now we're going to jump into the expert focus. And by the way, folks, if you didn't hear and you just joining us and you didn't watch and listen to Jeff's hero's journey, you got to go back and watch and listen to it, because as you come to expect from Expert Showcase, there are a ton of golden nuggets, a lot about business and a lot about how Jeff went through his struggles to end up coming out on the other side and realize that one of the things he realized was that being focused was much better than being diffused, so to speak. And I know you hear it all the time, but until you hear from a person who was struggling paycheck to paycheck and turned, a $33,000 a year business into, I think you said seven figures at this point, Jeff, or at some point seven figures?
Multiple six figures, yeah.
Multiple six figures. Well, see, we're pushing you forward. You're going to get to seven
Yeah,
figures. It's that call.
that's what I'm
It's
hoping. Let's go.
it's exactly but the whole point is when you go from under 50K to multiple six figures, that's a success story. And one of the ways he did it was through staying focused. And you have to go back and watch the hero's journey piece of our show to find out all about that. So Jeff, in this part of the show, now we're going to focus on your focus, the expert focus, business versus body and health. Which comes first? So let's start off with giving a quick summary. Then I'll give the folks the three keys to success, and we'll dive right in. Give us a quick summary of what we're going to be talking about here in this episode today.
Yeah, the quick summary is going to be just about how accountability, reverse engineering your lifestyle, and prioritizing your time makes everything happen where fitness doesn't have to be put on the back burner. Your health should be just as important as your money, and you don't let your money, your business you don't walk away from your business and just let it go for years and expect great things. You can't let your health go for years and expect you to be healthy and, look presentable on stage and have confidence and, not have health issues and all that kind of jazz. So the big focus today is going to be how to combine those so it's convenience, accountable, and you get results so you're happy at the end of the day.
Wow, that is epic, because as we all know, there's these ideas floating around that I think it's health, friendship, business, and I forget what else. There's a list of 3 or 5 things, and they say you're only allowed to. I think there's a list of 3 things, and you're only allowed to pick 2. Maybe I'll look that up by the time this episode actually airs and put the link in, since I mentioned it twice and I still can't remember what exactly it was. But that's besides the point. The 3 keys to success we're going to be talking about today are being accountable, nutrition, and knowledge of a plan. So, Jeff, let's dive right in. The first thing is being accountable. What are we going to talk about here?
Well, I mean, accountability is the big differentiator to wanting to get results and actually getting results. I mean, anyone can order a DVD that's, P90X or something like that, or get an app on their phone because they're free and things of that nature. But we all know when you're home, there's so many other things that distract you that you're not going to just, I'm going to go in the basement and work out right now. You might have the plan when you wake up in the morning, but by the end of the day, you're going to be like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, I'm too busy, I'm tired, I'll do it tomorrow. But when you have that meeting that you're supposed to meet with your health coach in the morning or whatever time you set for your appointment, you're going to show up to it because you don't want to let that person down. Psychologically, we don't want to let people down, and that comes all the way from growing up. You don't want to let your parents down. You don't want to let your teachers down in school. Your coach if you're playing a sport. So it's ingrained in us as youth. So when we're adults, subconsciously we have that same. I don't want to let someone else down, so I'm definitely going to make it to the meeting. I mean, I didn't want to let Chris down, so I showed up to my appointment today. It's things of that nature that the accountability is the main focus of my business, to allow people to not have the dream but live the dream.
Yeah, I love that. Not only have the dream, but live the dream. Love it, love it. But I have a question about accountability, because there are some people who struggle with accountability. Now, put aside the question of whether they're your ideal clients or not. We can answer that in a second. But when it comes to accountability, first of all, have you ever found somebody in your life or in one of your clients who has struggled with accountability?
Yeah, I mean, accountability from, everyone is different, so no one's going to have the same background or life or things of that nature. So accountability for everyone and is the different as far as their results and everything like that. So when I see people that struggle with accountability, they're more or less afraid, and that fear is what holds them back, as opposed to the open-mindedness of what you need to get that accountability partner.
Wow, and that is so true because I've known a lot of people who struggle. I know a lot of people too who struggle with accountability, and what it all boils down to is fear of something. It might be fear of
Yeah.
success. It might be. I mean, let me ask you that question. When you're talking about being accountable, so I know we're focused on being accountable, but since we talked about fear here for a second, when you see somebody who's maybe has the fear of being held accountable for something, and that and the fear of do you ever find that it's maybe could be a fear of success, like the fear of, oh my gosh, if I lose this weight, or if I get healthy, or if I become more active, then and then fill in the blank. Do you ever find that
I have a
happen?
prime example of that. Um, a lady is married, a child, they got divorced. She still has custody of the children, but she gained a lot of weight from it. And she's so afraid of losing weight because she doesn't want to be checked out by another guy, or just um, let down by another guy or something like that. That she'd rather be overweight and avoided, or looked past, than being healthier and putting herself out there because she's fear of rejection. And it boils down to the fear of rejection. And so that's like a prime example of that fear can just be so overwhelming in your life that, I mean, you're willing to give up your health as opposed to wanting to make the change to be healthy, to be around for your daughter or kids or whatever you have going on.
Well, and that ends up becoming what's your big why. I mean, right now, her why of not being hurt again by another guy is more powerful than the why of being, and I hate to say it this way, and I'll say it because she's your client, so she can yell at me, but it sounds like her why of not being, wanting to be hurt again is more powerful than the why of wanting to be around for her children forever, because it's very,
Yep.
very painful, and it's very, very painful to get hurt again. Whereas in the brain can rationalize it and say, well, it's going to be 50 years or something until we have to deal with the health issues, right?
Right. And I mean, a lot of the problem with being overweight or even diabetes and things of that nature is it doesn't hurt. If you have a broken arm, you're not going to use that arm because it hurts. But when you're overweight, you're not going to stop eating or change your eating habits because it's not hurting you to do so. And so that was another big thing of finding out in my profession, is how to take that and more or less educate people so that fear isn't so scary. People are a lot of afraid of what they don't know, and so the more education they have and understanding, that's why I try to put it in layman's terms, and I don't do the whole yelling boot camp thing, because it's more understanding the body that people see the big difference, and not the Jillian Michaels fat Biggest Loser. I can't stand her, but Biggest Loser aspect where you just, we got to do this right now or else you're worthless, and like that doesn't help, especially when these are real people, not that kind of jazz.
Yeah, exactly. Well, back to the account, and I so agree, and back to that accountability thing. Obviously, you have an ideal client, so I'm going to guess you have pretty much a constant way of keeping people accountable. But when you're looking at people, keeping people accountable, do if you get somebody who might not be your ideal client at the beginning, do you find different ways of helping to keep them accountable? Or is that maybe a standard? Is everybody different when it comes to how to keep them accountable for something?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue with accountability is finding out the why. If you need to hold yourself accountable, ask yourself why, and then ask yourself why again. Like, if there's 5 levels to asking why, is when you get to the root of it. Um, and then if you can't do it yourself, then you hire a coach like me or someone else that's, whatever, to help you along that journey. And so my biggest thing for anyone looking for accountability, no matter what your goals are, why is that goal important? Okay, now what's that why? Like if you want to train for a cycling event, why do you want to train for that cycling event? What's so important that that cycling event means more than, you have to wake up early in the morning? Things of that nature, you just break down the layers so you get to the root of it, and that's where accountability is at the bottom.
Oh, epic! And I love the 5 levels. I mean, when I teach people things, I tell them to continue asking themselves why
Yeah.
until they find the answer. But I love the 5 levels, and that kind of puts at least a casing around it to give people a little bit more to grab onto. The
Right.
interesting thing I think I heard in there was that you can be accountable to yourself. So let me ask you this question. I know external. A lot of times when we talk about accountability and being accountable, it's always to somebody else. And even at the beginning of this conversation, we start off by talking about being accountable to somebody else. But do you find that in some cases people can be accountable to themselves and at least make some progress?
Yeah, and that's why like my programs I have set in 3 different levels depending on what your accountability needs are. But like I hold myself accountable. I don't have a workout partner. I have to the drive inside myself because I did find out my whys. And when I got down to it, the main point is my mom had a lot of medical issues. My family's had, cancers and all that kind of jazz. I want to live as healthy as I can to know that I gave my body the best chance in this world. And that was before kids, before marriage, kind of stuff. My mom was born with a hole in her heart. She had open heart surgery after I was born. The stroke. She's had breast cancer twice. Thyroid issues, brain deterioration. There's a whole gambit that my why is to be healthy so I can take care of people, and that's my driving motivation. So when I do it to other people, it's coming from a good place because I did it to myself.
Wow, that is so profound, and it's an example of where when you have that deep enough why, and when you have
Hmm.
that burning desire why, you can achieve. I I pause before I say anything. You can achieve anything you were meant to achieve, and not that me or
Right.
anybody else is holding you down. The fact of it is, you have a blueprint inside of you, to be successful. And once you find it, live to, through, and within it, I call it the 0 point. It's something that you can be ultra successful. So it's just amazing how you've turned a lot of negativity and a lot of tragedy, as people would talk about, into positivity. And before we wrap up the accountable, I love the fact that what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is when you find that deep enough why, you can get to a point where you can hold yourself accountable and still achieve success without needing that external accountability partner, so to speak, that has been pushed in and is said is that a lot of people say is so critical to success.
Right. I mean, people stick with me because they like the different workouts, the, new routines and all that kind of jazz. But as far as, after a year or two of being with me, they're to the point that they could do it on their own. It's just more of a preference that they'd like to work with someone. But,
Right.
everyone's going to stick with me forever. I'd be happy if they did, but, my job is to make people to the point where they can do it on their own.
Right, exactly. And I guess that's one of the things I was to wrap up accountability. One of the things I was trying to get to was it's great to have an accountability partner at the beginning, and it's great.
Yeah.
There are people who need external accountability partners, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. My contention is that our industry a lot pushes that external accountability because let's face it, external accountability equals more money and more clients for a lot of people. I'm a big believer that, as you had said, people come in, we help them for a time. If they stay with us forever, that's great. But our goal should really be to get them to be self-sufficient and be able to rely on themselves because there's going to come a time where we're not around. And if we
Yeah.
force them to rely on us, then we're actually doing them a disservice, right?
Right. That's why I do as much education as I can, break down their barriers as much as I can, and uh, make it a part of their lifestyle. So even if it's not with me, they're going to have that desire to keep going on their own or whatever.
Epic, epic. So let's go ahead and jump into nutrition. So what are we going to talk about here in nutrition?
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.